Also, Annastacia Palaszczuk and her Deputy Premier, well, they have decided to cave into a version of common sense. They have promised to establish a system where many of the cases that we have, again, chronicled here before everyone else jumped onto the bandwagon, and that's great, plenty of room for everyone. But you know, we were the first show to start talking about the borders. We were the first show to start showing you the people who were screwed over by the borders. Don't forget it. Well, the Premier today in Queensland has acknowledged that the cases that we have shown are, of course, a disgrace. It does not undo the heartlessness of the hack that she has as her Deputy Premier and Health Minister. It does not undo the unkind words that this Sheila has said, trying to win an election in a few weeks' time. But we take a win where we get them. And if this system works out, then hopefully many of the cases we are talking about will not continue. Roll the tape as we give her partial credit.
And I understand how distressing this is, so we're going to set up this hotline to make sure that we can deal with these, to coordinate with the families in a timely manner, and then they will be prioritised to the Chief Health Officer. Great.
Where was this hotline last week? Where was this hotline last month? Where was this hotline 3 months ago? Many people have been heartbroken, and sadly, some have died as a result of the messages that have come out of the Queensland government when it comes to border restrictions. Again, I'm pleased everyone else is involved, but we have been following this since the start. Remember, I was the bloke who got in the car and drove to the border to show you the madness, that on one side of an Australian street you couldn't cross to the other one without being fined, despite the fact that neither side of that border had the virus way back then. Now, I completely understand the need to focus on hotspots of certain parts of Sydney and the giant hotspot that is Melbourne. I'll get to that in a moment or two's time. But the Premier thinks you are an idiot. It's a constant theme on this show because it's the constant theme of how she thinks she can slither her way to a re-election. She'll probably win it, but she has to live with herself after she's won it. If she has a conscience anywhere, it should haunt her. Before she puts her head down on the pillow each and every night, she should remember that the reality of what she has done and the messages that have been sent relentlessly by her government have meant that people have not sought the medical care that they deserve, or they have been denied the chance to be with someone as little as a day-old baby or as old as the oldest member of their family who have passed away, or those that are dying in a nursing home. Those are the rules that have been put in place by the Premier. So don't fall for it when she says this crap.
If there is someone that needs emergency care, if they need, a helicopter to fly them to one of our hospitals, that will happen. And this is an absolute tragedy about this young baby. I mean, there's a woman who's grieving at the moment, and many people know what that feels like. So, if the clinicians make that urgent decision about where a person needs to go, or a young person, they will be made in the best interest of that young person.
So today, they made a policy decision that I accept. It's one that they should have done last week, last month, many times before. Yesterday, they were trying to tell you that their hearts are full of kindness. But remember what was said last week.
People living in New South Wales, they have New South Wales hospitals. In Queensland, we have Queensland hospitals for our people.
So you've heard it all before. So you've heard that there's a system in place. We're incredibly compassionate. But the hospitals are just for us, even though only 45% of the funding of the healthcare system in Queensland is paid for by Queensland taxpayers. We've got the docs. They've never denied this claim because it is the truth. So has Annastacia Palaszczuk learnt the lesson that meant that a woman with twin babies didn't cross the border because she was afraid of what would happen, so much so she had to wait the 16 hours and eventually, sadly, one of those two twins died? Of course not, because she knows there's an election to win. And sympathy, that's what you say at the start of the news package. But hopefully by the end of the news package, they'll love you for being tough.
Queensland will continue to have our borders closed to keep Queenslanders safe. I'm not going to be moved on this, so The federal government can throw whoever they want at that, or we can have Clive Palmer as well, but I'm not going to be moved.
No wonder people were confused. No wonder people have turned away, because they have seen examples, like before, the week before, of that woman with the twin babies. The week before, when the mother and father couldn't go to the ICU for their baby in Queensland. Remember, we talked about it, everyone else copied, everyone else followed. That's great, there's lots of room on the bandwagon. But as late as today, ring this number, but it's not guaranteed that you'll get a result. And anyone else who wants to criticise this, well, apparently we're part of some vast right-wing conspiracy. Now, I hate to burst the Premier's bubble with some facts, but they are ones that are relevant. If you're one of the people who's sitting back and going, how good are these tight borders? At least it's keeping all that ugly stuff out from another state. Let me tell you a few things. Yes, a news poll showed this today about the support for the Premier's ability, and I thought the question was worded weirdly, which is, should your Premier have the right to whack up a border? Should there be a problem? Well, unsurprisingly, 92% of people in South Australia, yes. 91% in Western Australia, 84% in Queensland, 76% in New South Wales and 74% in Victoria. But reality is different when it comes to the actual threat of coronavirus crossing the borders. I repeat, we know what's happening in Melbourne. We know what's happening in very small pockets of Sydney, but they're back on top of this. But the hundreds and hundreds of kilometres with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people all over the country, here is the reality of, in each of those states, the percentage of councils that have 10 or fewer cases. In South Australia, 100%. In Western Australia, 100%. In Queensland, 99%. 95% in New South Wales and 51% in Victoria. So I get it. The council areas that have the existing cases, when you book a flight, you should be denied the chance to enter the state. When you get to the border and they see your driver's licence and they match it to one of those local government areas, you should be turned around. But how does it honestly work where Western Australia is pretending no one is allowed in from the next door neighbour, where 100% of council areas have 10 or fewer cases? In fact, they only have 5 in the entire state. Even when you move over to New South Wales, and their number is 95%. That's the reality. So if you're one of these people who told a pollster, I love these damn borders, just a few people you should think about, but I'm sure you won't care, because you haven't cared the whole way through. But it doesn't mean I won't keep talking about it, because I repeat, first to do it, others will copy, welcome to the bandwagon, but these are the people you should be thinking about tonight, while you're sitting pretty comfortable and relaxed right now. Max is a 13-year-old. He's not allowed to see his parents, because if he does, he'll have to quarantine for 2 weeks when he goes back to school. A grandparent like Dominic, who decided to go and get a job but then wasn't allowed back into Western Australia despite the fact that the job disappeared. There's a baby like Caden, who's 15 months old but had to sit at the Western Australia border, not allowed back in because they'd have to wait 2 weeks if they actually did. There's a retiree like Beth, who is one of many who has sat and sleeps in her car in the Western Australia border because they're not allowing her to come back to even quarantine for 2 weeks. And there's the son-in-law like Stephen, who wasn't able to go to a funeral. Because despite the fact that he is one of the many that comes from the 100, 99 or 95% of council areas with 10 or fewer cases, they're still trying to scare you shitless. Because there's an election in Queensland in a few weeks, there's an election in Western Australia in a few months, and they all know that the cover of COVID will save you like it did for their mate in the Northern Territory.